गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चिन्मयं व्यापि यत्सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भवानी शंकरौ वन्दे श्रद्धा विश्वासरूपिणौ याभ्यां विना न पश्यन्ति सिद्धा स्वान्तस्थमीश्वरम्। We will have the Namasmarana. Moharahitam Atmaswarupam Moharahitam Atmaswarupam Alasyarahitam Alasyarahitam ब्रह्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मविदूरं भ्रमविदूरं अज्ञानरहितं अज्ञानरहितं भ्रमविदूरं भ्रमविदूरं अज्ञानरहितं अज्ञानरहितं अहंकार अहंकार ममकाररहितं ममकाररहितं अहंकार ममकाररहितं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं कर्ता भोक्ता कर्ता भोक्ता निद्रारहितं निद्रारहितं जन्म मृत्यो जन्म मृत्यो रोगातीतं रोगातीतं कर्ता भोक्ता निद्रारहितं जन्म मृत्यो रोगातीतं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं कुलं गोत्रं कुलं गोत्रं जरातीतं जरातीतं मनोबुद्धि मनोबुद्धि संसाररहितं संसाररहितं कुलं गोत्रं जरातीतं मनोबुद्धि संसाररहितं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं मोहरहितं आत्मस्वरूपं आलस्यरहितं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं भ्रमविदूरं अज्ञानरहितं अहंकार ममकाररहितं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं आत्मस्वरूपं ब्रह्मस्वरूपं 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 यस्मिन् ज्ञाने भवेत् सर्वं विज्ञातं परमात्मनि तं वन्दे नित्यविज्ञानम् आनन्दमजमव्ययम् आनन्दमजमव्ययम् यदज्ञानादभूद्वैतम् ज्ञाते यस्मिन्निवर्तते रज्जुसर्पवदत्यन्तम् तं वन्दे पुरुषोत्तमम् तं वन्दे पुरुषोत्तमम् यस्योपदेशधीदित्या यस्योपदेशदीधित्या चिदात्मानः प्रकाशते नमः सद्गुरवे तस्मै स्वाविद्याध्वान्तभानवे स्वाविद्याध्वान्तभानवे Harihi Om. Perception is one of the means of acquiring worldly knowledge and as well as experience. We perceive so many things, even though categorically we say body perceives the objects, but still perception continues even at the mental and intellectual levels also. Perception as such is linear, local and limited to a fixed point of view. Perception is linear, local and limited to a fixed point of view or fixed point of experiencing. We look at it from a viewpoint which is fixed, and experience also is accordingly connected with it. The vast space is there. We have a small window which opens out into the space. We stand behind the window, and through the window when we look at the space, we see only a portion of that space. Fixed viewpoint. Experience also is connected with that fixed viewpoint. So, perception is limited to a fixed point of view or experiencing. Therefore, it is said that from a single point of observation, there is or there seems to be a here and a there. Here and a there from this fixed point of observation. A here and a there. A now and a then. A this and a that. A past and a future. From this fixed point of view, then only there seems to be a this and a that. A here and a there. You are seated there. From that fixed point of view, you say here and then there. But somebody who is sitting behind you, that here starts from that fixed point of view. For that person you are there, but for you, you are here. So like that, from that fixed point of view, there is a here and a there is a this and a that, there is a now and a then, there is a past and a future. But that is a fixed point of view and fixed point of experiencing. And from this fixed point of view only, there is a space with the dimensions and there is time with elapses and duration. Elapses means starting point and ending point along with the duration. From that fixed point of view only, there is a space and as well as there is a time. If we can elevate our thinking for time being and uplift ourselves to a higher vision for the time being, for the sake of understanding, and imagine what must be like the omnipresent. Omnipresent meaning that which is present everywhere. Suppose we imagine an omnipresent viewer, not a viewer from the perception point of view, from fixed point of view, but omnipresent viewer. How an omnipresent viewer views or observes that which is present everywhere, how does it observe? That omnipresent observer would then be simultaneously witnessing from every minute point in the totality. In the totality, that omnipresent viewer will be simultaneously observing from every minute point in the totality. Because he is everywhere. Every minute point, whatever minute point you can recognize, from that minute point, he would be observing simultaneously. So, it is said, every point of observation would therefore be here to that observer, and immediately that here will be everywhere. For a limited perception, there is a here and a there. But for an omnipresent observer, which is observing from every minute point in the totality, from that minute point in totality, there is a here. But immediately, that is everywhere. Because it is everywhere. The here would immediately be qualified as everywhere. So that simultaneously present observer would observe from everywhere. Even though from one point it is called as here, because from our level of understanding. And from that omnipresent observer point of view, now is immediately infinite. What is viewed as now is immediately infinite, because it is everywhere. And it is infinite, so now becomes infinite, here becomes everywhere. Here is everywhere, now is infinite. So that is the point of observation. That is the way in which the omnipresent observes. The very thought of now would disappear into infinity. Now means infinity. And from that point, we have seen what is omnipresent observer. Here will be everywhere, now will be infinity. But from that understanding, if we try to know omniscient knower, omnipresent observer we have seen, omniscient knower, you and I know from our perception point of view. But omniscient knower who knows everything, therefore that omniscience is the consciousness of the entire totality, equally in which there would be no particular place. Because it views, it knows everything. By being everywhere, it knows everything. Then from that omniscient point of knowing, nothing would be changing. Because it knows everything everywhere. So where is the question of change? Nothing would be changing, nothing would be happening, and there would be no dimension, there would be no duration, there will be no beginning, there will be no ending. If I am limited, then there will be beginning, there will be ending. I am infinitely knowing everything, everywhere. Then where is the question of beginning? The beginning, if at all we call, it is an illusory appearance of what is called as a measurement of time, beginning and ending. In that omniscient self, which is not bound by time, which is not bound by space, which is not bound by object, all appear in it. It is never bound by anything. So then, everywhere present simultaneous observer actually is all that is observing. Who is that observer? Who is that witness? Actually, if we try to know who is that witness, the witness or observer is everywhere present simultaneous observer. Because he is omnipresent. Everywhere present simultaneous observer is actually that which is observing. And there is neither a subject nor an object. Consequently, the presence is completely self-knowing because it is all that exists as totality of manifestation. Now, for example, to get a small glimpse of what we are trying to know as an omnipresent observer and omniscient knower, Imagine that we are traveling out into space in some vehicle, some spaceship, or just imagine that we are traveling out into a space faster than the speed of light. Faster than the speed of light, past all universes. We have already gone beyond all universes. In this space, faster than the speed of light, we are traveling past all the universes. Now there is no reference point. Now there is no reference point because we have gone beyond all universes. Whatever we call as galaxy, solar system, universe, gone beyond all that. But we are traveling faster than the speed of light. No reference point now. And now if we are asked, where are you? क्या बोलेंगे? किसके बाजुक है? किसके पास में है? Like those fellows who were arrested for vagrancy, we saw that example. When he was asked by the judge, where are you? All the oceans, all the forests, all the mountains, all the woods, all are mine. I am everywhere. And when he asked the second person, he said, I am next door to this fellow. So, if we look at it, then if we are asked at that point, where are you? There is nowhere to be. We can only say, there is nowhere to be. Because we have gone past all universes, there is no reference point. Now, where are you? There is nowhere to be. If from a limited point of our mental thinking, we can understand there is nowhere to be, in this example, the one that is present everywhere, always, observing everything from every minute point, where there can be divisions or limitations. There cannot be any limitation, there cannot be any division for that all-present consciousness, which knows itself as only consciousness which is present everywhere. This highest layer or level of consciousness is infinite and beyond all illusions, beyond all change, beyond all impermanence, beyond all sequence, beyond all that is called as limitations. A layer below that consciousness is that layer of awareness. That is why we call that consciousness alone, we have seen a few times in the past, as manifested as witness. In this series also we saw witnessing, observing, awareness is consciousness on the very first day. Very first point, what we saw is that only. Witnessing, observing, awareness. So that is a layer below this consciousness. And this layer of awareness has capacity for knowing everything, registering everything, recording everything, whatever is done at the internal organ level, at the perception level, at the mental level, at the ego level, at the intellectual level, at the chitta level, at the action level, at the body level, everything is recorded. All decisions, all thoughts, all feelings, all emotions, everything is registered and recorded. That is how it is all available for the individualized ego, for as a matter which analyzes about the karmas, the results of the actions, the next birth, the other birth, so on and so forth. This level of awareness registers everything. But this level of awareness functions like an intermediary connecting point between the egoistic level of existence, where the mind, intellect, memory, ego, body, senses are there, and supreme consciousness is there. This awareness is like an intermediary link. From a gross level of understanding, it is like the gear system which connects the engine and the wheels. A connecting link between the engine and the wheels, the gear system. So that everything is in connection and then it moves. So, that individual who has understood oneself to be present everywhere, knows everything, that viewpoint is entirely different. Limitations vanish, divisions vanish, segregations vanish, disparities vanish, confusions vanish, miseries vanish, because miseries and sorrows can affect only from a limited point of view. Only the one who sees limited, only one who has got limited viewpoint, only such a person is affected by joys and sorrows. The one who has infinite viewpoint, simultaneously everywhere present observer, can only be in joy, because already omniscient, naturally all blissful. So that is how Adi Shankaracharya ji and Hastamalaka, who were omniscient and as well as omnipresent and ever blissful, they try to uplift us to that level of consciousness. After seeing 3 slokas, now we move on to the 4th sloka. Yatha darpana bhava, yatha darpana bhava, abhasahanau, abhasahanau, mukham vidyate, kalpanahinamekam, tadhadhi viyoge, tadhadhi viyoge, nirabhasako yaha, nirabhasako yaha, sanityopalabdhihi swarupohamatma, sanityopalabdhihi swarupohamatma. Yatha darpana abhave abhasahanau, just as on the removal of the mirror, the reflection that is there in the mirror ceases to exist. Mirror is there, reflection is there. When the mirror is removed, the reflection that is there in the mirror ceases to exist. Mukham kalpanahinam ekam vidyate. The face which was getting reflected in the mirror, the reflection ceases to exist. That mukham, the face, without any false appearances, exists as only one. The face is there, it is getting reflected in the mirror. The mirror is removed, reflection is gone. So the face which is there exists without any reflections, without any false appearances, as only one original face. Tadha diviyoge. So also, when this reflecting medium called as mind ceases to exist, yaha nirabhasakaha. The reflection that was there in the mind, reflection that was there in the mind also ceases to exist. And what is that whose reflection was there in the mind which ceases to exist? Sanityopalabdhihi swarupohamatma. That is the eternal self or the eternal ever-present consciousness, which is I alone, which is myself alone. So, it is said clearly, just as when the mirror is removed, the reflection of the face ceases to exist, and the face alone remains without any false appearances. All false appearances are gone. Because the reflecting medium gone, reflections gone, no more false appearances. Similarly, Atman is free from all wrong notions caused by reflections. Whatever reflections that are there, Atman is freed from all false notions. Now here, it is already understood, it is already mentioned that the Jiva is the reflection of Brahman, Atman, which is called as self, in the mind. So, this very Jiva, who is called as reflection of Brahman, Atman in the mind, has no independent or separate existence apart from Brahman. There is no separate existence apart from Brahman. So, because of the ignorance of the real nature of the Jiva, who is a reflection of Brahman Atman in the mind, because of the ignorance of the real nature of the Jiva, this Jiva identifies himself with the body-mind complex. Because of the identification with the body-mind complex, the Jiva undergoes the suffering because of the bondage. All the cause of suffering is due to the identification. But once the Jiva realizes the true nature, that it is not different from Brahman, because the reflection has no separate independent existence apart from Brahman, when it realizes that my true nature is Brahman, then the identification with the body-mind complex comes to an end. Because the identification with the body-mind complex comes to an end, the suffering also comes to an end, automatically bondage also comes to an end. So, realization of one's own real nature leads to cessation of identification with body-mind complex, which is called here as mind ceasing to exist, called as dhi viyoge. In the sloka itself, it is said, Tadha dhi viyoge nirabhasako yaha. Tadha dhi viyoge. When the mind ceases to exist, abhasa also ceases to exist. So, dhi viyoga, the mind ceasing to exist. Meaning, in other words, it is loss of mind in its present form, along with its vasanas, along with its tendencies, along with its samskaras, along with its impressions. These vasanas are accumulations left over by past actions and thoughts. Past thoughts and actions leave impressions or leftovers, which are called as vasanas. These past thoughts and actions which leave these leftovers, which are called as vasanas, are cause of likes and dislikes. The likes and dislikes give disastrous consequences. Because we have strong likes, strong dislikes, then we land ourselves in disastrous consequences. So, when the mind ceases to exist, disastrous consequences cease to exist, likes and dislikes cease to exist. Not only that likes and dislikes cease to exist, but the thoughts and actions cease to exist, the impressions cease to exist, vasanas cease to exist. Then, because these vasanas are there, because these limited viewpoints of perceptions are there, thoughts and feelings and emotions are there, likes and dislikes are there, the individual is undergoing suffering because of the identification. When all these things cease to exist, what can happen to that? That can only remain as ever-present, eternal consciousness, all-knowing and all-blissful consciousness. So when the vasanas are eliminated, the mind becomes pure, and which makes the jiva capable of realization, then that jiva completely transcends, goes beyond the limitations of the body and mind and sense organs, etc. And thereafterwards, no more affected by whatever happens at the body level, at the sense organs level, at the world level, and at the mind level. Nothing will happen to that very jiva who is now understood his real nature as that of Atman, which is not different from Brahman. So then, Adi Shankaracharya says, all these joys and sorrows are connected with upadhi, limiting adjunct, which here we refer as antahakarana. Mind, intellect, memory, ego, equipment. All the joys and sorrows are connected with this upadhi and are delusorily imagined to be in the Atman, in the real self. This delusory imagination, in other words, is called as superimposition, in other words called as adhyasa, what are not belonging to Atman are superimposed to be and superimposed upon Atman and thereafter believed to be belonging to Atman, and there we see that Bhranti Kalpita Bandhana comes to exist. Bhranti Kalpita, delusorily imagined bondage comes to exist. Not real bondage, delusorily, mistakenly imagined bondage. Bhranti Kalpita Bandhanam seems to exist, not a real Bandhanam. So, in order to remove that Bhranti Kalpita Bandhanam, we need to remove the Adhyasa. For that we need to remove the Ajnana. For that we need to gain Gnanam. That is what is being taught here by Hastamalaka and Adi Shankaracharya ji. So when we gain that Gnanam, that Ajnana along with its Adhyasa disappears. The disappearance of or termination of or cessation of Adhyasa is called as Moksha or liberation. Moksha is not a new thing that arises. Whenever this identification or disappearance or termination or cessation of Adhyasa happens, then immediately moksha arises. There is no time gap, there is no time lapse. That is what is called as a liberation here. That is what Hastamalaka means, and Adi Shankara also in the explanations mean. 4 Catholic women sat together and they were talking about the greatness of their sons. First woman said, "My son is a priest, and when he walks into the room, everyone calls him Father, Father. So he is great." Another lady said, "My son is a bishop. When he enters into the room, people call, Your Grace, Your Grace, Your Grace. So he is great." Third lady said, "My son is a cardinal. When he enters into the room, they say, Your Eminence, Your Eminence. So he is great." The fourth lady said, "This is nothing. What is there in people calling Your Eminence, Your Grace, Father? Ordinary. Very ordinary. My son is well built, robust, full of sturdiness and strength in the body, very smart, very beautiful, very attractive, very romantic, and he is a bodybuilder too. He is a romantic guy, attracts so many girls. And when he comes into the room, all the girls say, My God. My God." So they remember God. So my son is great. He makes everybody remember God. Ultimately in this world, whether we remember this or that, ultimately we have to remember what is our true nature, which is not different from the divinity. Then we transcend all the limitations of body-mind complex. There was this husband who was working away from hometown. He got a job, so he went to work. After a month of joining in that company, he sent a note to wife. "I got promoted as assistant manager. A feather in my cap. I have a feather in my cap." The wife looked at the note and smiled. After 2 months, he sent another note. "Now I am promoted as a manager in the company. I have another feather in my cap." Another feather in my cap. And after another 15 days, he sends a note, "I am removed from the job. I have no money to come back home. Please send me some money." The wife replies with another note, "Use those 2 feathers and fly home." You have feathers, no? Use feathers and fly home. A limited, identified ego with the body-mind complex, whatever is there, always finds greatness in petty things only. But that lasts only till there is a jolt that is experienced. Then the ego starts seeing the reality. Then it starts thinking why this is happening. All because of one's own thoughts and actions. Because of the lack of clarity, because there is no real knowledge, because of that confusion that prevails, all these things will be there. Santo, we saw, Santosh shortened his name and said Santo. Had a girlfriend named Santa, meaning it was Sunita, I silent, Santa. So Santo had a girlfriend named Santa. So Santo proposed, I would like to marry you. So Sunita said, I am 5 years elder to you. How can you do that? Oh, well, that's nothing. Santo said, I will marry you after 5 years. Limited way of understanding is like that. After 5 years, she will also grow. Not that only he grows. So limited perception thinks like that only. Clarity is not there. Knowledge is not there properly. That is how that reflection which is identified with body-mind complex because of lack of original knowledge of one's own true nature will feel everything limited. All limitations around. Like this member of parliament who had no proper knowledge of English but always interested in presenting himself as a person who knows English. Always. So, in one party, dinner party hosted by a very eminent industrialist where he also went and Prime Minister also came, PM also came there. So, it was a dinner party. After all initial meeting and exchanges and all, they started the dinner. So, one person came to this MP and said, why don't you also start eating? Because PM is already eating, Prime Minister started eating. But this man didn't want to eat when Prime Minister is eating. He wanted to just be around and then get into the notice and good looks of Prime Minister, good books. So he said, I will not eat now. He said, I will eat only after Prime Minister has passed away. What he meant is different. After he leaves the place, but he used something else after the Prime Minister has passed away. And then the fellow who asked him that question was worried whether PM heard this. Because then he thinks this opposition is too bad. They want me to pass away also. Thereafterwards, he was given good dinner and he was also given the desserts and all. And when the same man came to ask him, why don't you have a second serving of the ice cream? Why don't you have a second serving of the ice cream? This man said, I am fed up fully. But he wanted to say something that it is full up to my neck, up to my throat. But he said, I am fed up fully. And thereafterwards, in that party, there was one famous writer whose book is very famous. Everybody was reading that book. So, this man introduced that author to this MP and then told about that book. And this MP says, I heard about you and your book. Good job. Well done. The book is so good that even after you die, don't worry, book will become immortal. Instead of telling your writing will become immortal, you die, but book will become immortal. Thereafterwards, this man, after the party, was told that there is a very nice garment exhibition. Garments are displayed, exhibition that runs whole night. Why don't you see it? So he went there. And that was a winter time, not summer time like this. So he went there and then went into one nice garment shop and said, I want hot pants. They were confused. And this man who was with him said, not hot pants, sir, woolen pants. Please say woolen pants, not hot pants. That will keep you warm, woolen pants. Thereafterwards, he saw a tea stall, went to tea stall and said, give me woolen tea. All because of lack of clear understanding about how to use that language. When that language clarity itself is not there, it leads to so much of confusion. Our nature, knowledge of our nature is not clear to us, and what all confusions it will lead to? All confusions only. One language can lead us to lack of clarity, or lack of proper knowledge of one communicative language can lead us to so many confusion. What about the lack of knowledge of our true nature? Except confusion, nothing will be there. That is why we have to get out of this confusion. We have to uplift ourselves into a higher level. That is the reason why Adi Shankaracharya in his Bhashya to this sloka said, disappearance of or termination or cessation of adhyasa is moksha. A new self is need not be created then. A new self doesn't take birth there. It is always in liberation. Because of this error, mistaken identity, it is not clearly experienced or understood. So this adhyasa, superimposition, has to be removed, then liberation will be attained. Thereafterwards, the connection to the next sloka we will see now, but there are few more points to be seen in this sloka. There are certain thinkers who think mind itself is the self, or mind is Atma, and something body, prana, buddhi are Atma. So these views will be refuted in the next sloka. But before we go into that, we see some important ingredients which are connected. See, the original face which is there, like that original face, what is represented here is consciousness or Chaitanyam. This reflecting medium is removed. For the face, the reflection is no more born, and reflection no more dies. Once that reflecting media removed, birth and death of reflection gone from the standpoint of original face. Similarly, when the reflecting medium called as mind is removed, then for that consciousness, birth, death no more appear, because it is infinity. Even in relation to the reflection, no birth, no death. So that is why it is called as Utpatti Vinasha Rahitam Chaitanyam. What is called as Chaitanyam? Utpatti Vinasha Rahitam. There is neither birth to it nor destruction to it. Then what we say? That is why we say Atman is the unchanging witness of the appearance also and disappearance also of the jiva. Appearance also and disappearance of the mind. That Atman or that awareness is the unchanging witness of the appearance of mind also, disappearance of mind also, appearance of very jiva and disappearance of very jiva. And that is beyond all appearances and beyond all disappearances. So if it is beyond all appearances and disappearances, and whatever is connected with this appearing and disappearing mind, and then the jiva which is identified with the body-mind complex, all are redundant, all are not actually related to the consciousness which you are really. Then Adi Shankaracharya ji brings this out in Mahavakya Darpanam. Mahavakya Darpanam, sloka number 186 in Mahavakya Darpanam. Janma mrityu jara rogaha, Janma mrityu jara rogaha, Kulagotra Ashramadayah Sukshmasyaiva Tavaitesham Sukshmasyaiva Tavaitesham Sakshino Naiva Kaschana Sakshino Naiva Kaschana. Very beautifully Adi Shankaracharya says, Janma, birth, Mrityu, death, Jara, old age, Roga, diseases, Kula, caste system, Gotra, the sources and origins which we count whenever we take Sankalpas, Ashramadaya, stages of childhood, youth, middle age and old age, stages of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. All these different stages of life, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa, Ashramas, all of them are connected with limiting adjunct called as Upadhi. And here Adi Shankaracharya says this limiting adjunct is subtle body. Later on he explains why he calls it a subtle body alone and not with the witness of the subtle body. Who has Janma, who has birth, who has death, who has old age, who has diseases, who has caste system, who has Kula, who has Gotra, who has all these stages. Limiting adjunct called as Upadhi. Actually it is gross body which has all this. But Adi Shankara says it is subtle body which has all this. Why he says like that? Because growth, decay, childhood, youth, old age, diseases, caste, gotras, all are connected with gross body. But still the Shruti says, Annamayam hi somya manaha, Antakarana or mind is naturally grown as per or according to the food intake. So whatever we take, gross food, food doesn't mean only that which we eat, but food that we take through indriyas and mind and etc. everything. So whatever we receive through all the sense organs also, sense perceptions also, that also is called as food. So mind is born out of that food, molded out of that food. So I am a child, I am an old man, I am diseased, I belong to this caste, I am suffering the disease, I am dying. All these are transactions, properties, qualities that are connected with Anatma, not self, but which are reflecting in mind only, subtle body only. Where do we feel I am suffering, I am dying, I belong to this caste, I am child, I am youth, I am middle-aged. Where do we feel all this? In the mind only. So that is the reason why Adi Shankara says all these are connected with Upadhi called as mind only. All these are Anatma Dharmas, the properties or qualities connected with Upadhi. That is all. Upadhi is a limiting adjunct. Upadhi is a Maya Karya. Upadhi is a product of Maya. It is a permutation and combination of 5 elements. So, Upadhi is limited and these are all connected with Upadhi. And all these are properties and qualities and dharmas connected with Antakarana. So actually Sukha and Dukkha also are connected with this Upadhi. All other dualities are connected with this Upadhi. But because of this delusory, mistaken error, they are superimposed upon the Atman. So Adi Shankaracharya says, none of these are in the witness to the Upadhi. The Sakshi of mind, they are not there. But in the mind they are there. To mind all these are there, but not to the Sakshi of the mind. So Adi Shankara says, please never mind these things. What a beautiful thing. What a wonderful upliftment. Otherwise, how many fightings, how many divisions, how many disintegrations because of all these divisions? Lack of totality, lack of unity, lack of wholesomeness, lack of oneness. All are gone. Not even that. Even at the individual level, we undergo so much of suffering. But all that vanishes. Continuing further, in sloka number 187, what we saw now is 186. In sloka number 187 in Mahavakya Darpanam, Adi Shankaracharya says, Ajnana jadatalasya Ajnana jadatalasya Mohanidra Brahmadayah Mohanidra Brahmadayah Karanasyaiva te misham Karanasyaiva te misham Sakshino naiva kaschana Sakshino naiva kaschana Ajnana, ignorance, jadata, inertness, alasya, laziness or delaying nature. Ignorance, ajnana, inertness, jadata, alasya, laziness or delay. Moha, moha meaning delusion, confusion, infatuation. Delusion of mind which prevents one from discerning the truth. Such is the delusion which doesn't allow the mind to discern the truth from falsity, the real from the unreal. So, that moha, then nidra, sleep, and then brahma. Brahma meaning here error, mistake, misapprehension, delusion, and also deviating. What deviates, that also is called as Brahma. Deviates from the original track, original nature. Error, mistake, misapprehension, delusion, deviating, etc. Brahmadayah. All these things are properties of, qualities of, in other words, dharmas of causal body. Karana Shariram. Karana Shariram. They are all the dharmas of Karana Shariram. Trigunatmika Maya is avidya. Trigunatmika, the Maya which is with the Trigunas, here is compared with avidya. And that avidya is called as Karana Sharira or causal body. Hence, the so-called superficial knowledge and ignorance are also connected with it only. The worldly knowledge and ignorance, so on and so forth. So then here Adi Shankara says, in deep sleep, you are the witness for the causal body also. You are the witness for the causal body, Karana Sarira. Meaning, you are different from the Karana Sarira. Meaning, you don't have the qualities or properties or dharmas that are there in Karana Sarira. Meaning, you are that Atman which does not have ignorance, inertness, laziness, delusion, confusion, infatuation, sleep, error, mistake, misapprehension and deviation. You don't have any one of these things. So, whenever you get up from the sleep, when you say, I don't know what happened in the sleep, but I was happy. And even in the waking world, we get up and say, I don't know, I am ignorant of this. And then whatever we call as ignorance, I don't know this, I don't know that. Adi Shankaracharya ji says, all these things, whatever you say, are all imaginations. In you, who is the witness to this Karana Sarira, there is no error, there is no mistake, there is no deviation, there is no delusion. There is nothing like this. All these are in Karana Sarira. And that subtle body which is called as ego, mind, that is affected by the Karana Sarira. That has got avidya. But you are not having that. You don't have any one of these things. So he says, you are such a witness where avidya and karyas of avidya are not there. Avidya and effects of avidya, products of avidya, none of them are there. You are that witnessing consciousness. You are the witness of the causal body. Earlier he said, you are the witness of the gross body, but all those gross body experiences are reflected in subtle body. So, subtle body experiences birth, death, disease, old age and etc. So, you are the witness where none of these things are there. Now, he says you are the witness of causal body where none of these things are there. Now, again he continues further and says in the sloka number 188, 186, 187 we have seen, now 188 we are seeing in Mahavakya Darpanam. Kartruta bhoktruta hamta Kartruta bhoktruta hamta Mamatadika lakshanaha Mamatadika lakshanaha Buddhere vaisha samsaro Buddhere vaisha samsaro Nate samsruti sakshinaha Nate samsruti sakshinaha. If we carefully observe, Adi Shankaracharya is trying to tell all the limited viewpoints of perceptions are not there. You are simultaneously everywhere present observer. So you don't have these things of a gross body, of a subtle body, of a causal body. You are that omniscient, omnipresent observing witness. That is what he is trying to tell in a different way. Kartruta, doership. All the while we are very interested. I am the doer, I am doing this, I am doing that, without me nothing can be done, I am only responsible for this, that, always I only did, I am doer, kartruta, bhoktruta, enjoyership, I enjoyed this, so nobody enjoys like me, that is great enjoyment, no, I am enjoying, always bhoktruta, doership, enjoyership, ahamta, kartruta, bhoktruta, ahamta. Ahamta, egoism, I-ness, I, always from that I standpoint. So that ahamta. Then mamata, minus. This is mine, that is mine. The moment I say anything is mine, I am attached to it and that becomes special. And then I like it, then I dislike other things. Oh, so much of paraphernalia comes along with it. Mamata. So, kartruta, bhoktruta, ahamta, mamatadika lakshanaha, etc. that follow. All these dharmas, all the qualities, properties are nature of samsara. They are all connected with samsara. World, the changing world, the ever-changing samsara. And this is related only to buddhi. Buddhere vaisha samsaro. They are related only to buddhi, which is jada, inert. But only because of the reflection of consciousness in the buddhi becomes conscious or appears to be conscious. And then because it appears to be conscious, it thinks and identifies with these things that are there in the buddhi, in the samsara, which is reflected in the buddhi. I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the ego greater, I am mine. All these it gets identified. Hence, the samsara of doership, enjoyership is connected only with buddhi. That is why good actions, bad actions, good results, bad results, joys, sorrows, happiness, misery, success, failure, honor, dishonor, profit, loss, heat, cold, this, that, fat, that, all are there because of that only. So, Adi Shankaracharya says, oh my dear friend, none of these things belong to you, who is the witness of These doership, enjoyership, I-ness, minus, etc., etc. Who is the witness of buddhi? All these are in the buddhi, and samsara is connected with buddhi. Buddhi is connected with samsara. In samsara, these qualities and properties are there. Doership, enjoyership, I-ness and minus. All these are of samsara. Samsara is related to buddhi. Buddhi is a limited adjunct. You are the witness of buddhi. None of these things are there in you. You are beyond all these things. None of these things are there in you. So, Adi Shankaracharya ji says, my dear witness, you are a asamsari by nature. By nature, you have no samsara. By nature, you have no samsara. But by ignorant, mistaken, error-based, delusory imagination and superimposition, you think you have samsara. That is the problem. By nature, you have no samsara. That is what Hastamalaka also meant. When the reflecting media gone, original face remains, which is ever-present consciousness, which has no limitations, all limitations are connected with the reflecting media and then the reflections because of the reflecting media. Reflecting media, yada dharpana bhave, the dharpana removed, abhasaha now, nothing else is there. Nothing will be there anymore. Only original face remains. That original face, Adi Shankaracharya is trying to tell from various ways. That is what is called as witness. So, gross body qualities and properties are not there in it. Subtle body qualities and properties are not there in it. Causal body qualities and properties are not there in it. Meaning, the witness is beyond gross, subtle and causal bodies. That is why it is consciousness. And he says, you are that. Hastamalaka says, I am that. Adi Shankara says, you are that. Either they must be wrong or we must be wrong. Something must be wrong. In the intensive care unit of a very famous hospital, that had got famous doctors, specialists, most experienced specialists. In that intensive care unit, one thing was occurring regularly. At 11 p.m., on that one particular bed, irrespective of the patient who he or she is, irrespective of the disease, what type it is in them, in that intensive care unit, every now and then, every time, 11 p.m., that particular patient on that bed dies. Gone. Anybody sleeping on that particular bed and getting treated in intensive care unit, 11 p.m. gone. Then the doctors came together and started getting worried. Ye kya ho raha hai? And somebody said, Bhuta might be there, Preta might be there, Pichacha might be there, Devil might be there. So they all, because they have no other reason, but they had to believe it. Because anybody coming, whatever they try to do, then they decided one day, all the doctors, they wanted to hide in the room and then find out how this devil comes and takes the life away of the patient. Which devil comes? So they all, under a screen near the window, they hid themselves behind it, secretly and quietly. But every doctor of every religion was there. So they had their religious books because they were frightened. We don't know which devil, which Bhuta, Preta comes. So they all had religious symbols and books and all that with them. Chanting also. Silent chanting going on. Exactly at 11 p.m. the door was opened. 5 minutes to 11. The door was opened. And there entered the sweeper, cleaner, Then what he did? He went straight to the switchboard, unplugged the life supporting instruments, intensive care unit life supporting instruments, and plugged in the vacuum cleaner. Unplugged the life supporting instruments, gadgets, and plugged the vacuum cleaner. 20 minutes cleaning, then removed this, plugged it back. Gaya. No bhuta, no preta. All imagination. No need for all religious books and symbols and fear. Simple thing. Sweeper swept the patient away. Vacuum cleaned the patient's soul also into vacuum. Void mein bija diya. See, inattention paid to simple things also can create so much of life endangering situations. No doctor could understand this till they observed. ये क्यों मर जाते 11 बजे? क्या है सिंपल, ये निकाल दिया वो लगा दिया उन्होंने, उसको नहीं मालूम. He doesn't understand क्या है ये प्लग है स्विच है निकालो लगाओ. That is all. गया. So mistake, error is life endangering. Here also the ajnana sweeps away. Lives endangering. Ek life nahi, lives together endangering only. How many lives we are getting bound by same thing every now and then same thing. Because of ajnana. And then adhyasa. And then added to that another delusion. Ignorance is already there, superimposition is there, and delusion is there, and mistaken identity. Ab kya bolna? How many problems? Layers after layers. So that is why all these issues are there. There was a big mansion, very, very attractive. Inside also 1,000 rooms. Somebody has that 1,000-roomed mansion, 1,000 rooms. And outside the mansion it was written, praise the Lord, for He gave everything, or He gives everything. Praise the Lord, for He gives everything. So this owner was a proud owner of this mansion. Every now and then he used to come out and see who is seeing his mansion from there. But any passerby, anybody, they look like that. So one day when he came out of the mansion, there was one person who was standing right in front of the gate, but he was weeping. Weeping. And this man went out and then said, why are you weeping? Why are you weeping, feeling so sad? This man said, look at that inscription, what you have on your mansion. Praise the Lord, for He gives everything. Yeah. This man said, that is the cause for my weeping. Hey, why? He said, did God teach you corruption? No. Did God teach you cheating people and swindling money? No. You earned money only through those sources. That is how you built this 1,000-roomed mansion. By cheating people, by corruption, by deception. You earned the money. He said, yes, that is true. Then how can you write, praise the Lord? Then this man, who are you then? This man said, I am Satan. You have to write, praise the devil. For devil gives everything. You should write, praise the devil. I am feeling so sad that whatever I did to you, you are attributing to God. I made your mind polluted. I made your intellect distracted. I filled you with all negativities. I filled you with corruption. I made you cheat everybody. I made you earn so much of money. And you say God made it? He is weeping. In fact, my name should be there. Praise Satan. Praise devil. For devil gives everything. Ignorance is the greatest devil. What else? What else is the greatest devil? Ignorance is the greatest devil. So we need to go beyond that devil And that is possible only when we acquire divine knowledge. When we acquire divine knowledge, we will be able to go beyond the effects of the devil. So then, now we move on to sloka number 5. Manaschakshuradher viyukta swayam yo manaschakshuradher manaschakshuradihi manaschakshurade ragamya swarupaha sanityopalabdhihi swarupohamatma. Now, manaschakshuradher viyukta swayam yo manaschakshuradeh manaschakshuradihi manaschakshuradeः agamya swarupaha sanityopalabdhihi swarupohamatma sanityopalabdhihi swarupohamatma swarupohamatma. Don't think Adi Shankaracharya did not get or Hastamalaka did not get what to say. That's why he went on repeating same thing. Manaschaksharadi, manaschaksharadi, manaschaksharadi. I mean to say, what I mean to say is that I mean to say, not like that. Everything has its different import. So, yaha swayam manaha chakshuhu adehe vyuktaha manaschakshurade viyukta swayam yo. So, yaha swayam manaha chakshuhu adehe vyuktaha, that which itself is different from mind, I, etc. Manaschakshurader manaschakshuradihi. Manaha chakshuhu adehe, manaha chakshuhu adihi, and is mind of the mind, eye of the eye. First statement is that which itself is different from mind, eye, etc. Second statement is that which and is mind of the mind and eye of the eye. Then manaschakshurade agamya swarupaha, meaning manaha chakshuhu adehe agamya swarupaha, which is inaccessible to mind, eye, etc. Three different things. That which itself is different from mind, eye, etc. That which is mind of the mind, eye of the eye, etc. That which is inaccessible to mind, eye, etc. That is the eternal nature of consciousness, and that alone am I. So what it means, I am that self which is of the nature of eternal consciousness, which is different from the mind, eye and other organs, but itself is the mind of the mind, eye of the eye, ear of the ear, and so on. However, inaccessible to mind, eye, ear, and so on. अरे क्या तो भी बोल रहे भाई, तो ये बोल रहे सुनो. See, the external objects are experienced by mind and sense organs. Who is that experiencer? What Gurudev calls as perceiver, feeler, thinker is the individuality called as ego. We can call it as mind also. But actually here, for a better understanding, we say mind and sense organs are experiencer for our understanding. So this mind and sense organs, which are called as the experiencer, is different from the experienced objects. The experienced objects, that which has got form, sound, taste, smell, touch, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha based objects, the experienced objects are different from the experiencer. This is very clear. So, he says, applying the same logic, the self is different from the experiencer. The witness is different from the experiencer. The observer is different from the experiencer. The awareness is different from the experiencer. The consciousness is different from the experiencer. Just as the experiencer is different from the experienced objects, similarly, the witness is different from the experiencer also. So, it is only by the light of consciousness the mind is illumined, Sense organs are illumined. By themselves they are inert, insentient. They are able to perform the functions of thinking, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting, knowing through the mind, all because of the illumination of all of these things only by consciousness. That is why the consciousness is called mind of the mind, eye of the eye, ear of the ear, so on. Manastakshurader manastakshuradihi. Why it is mind of the mind, ear of the ear, eye of the eye? Why? It is only because it illumines, and because of it all are illumined and they do their respective functions. Eye can see only because of the illumination inside. So what is the eye of the eye? That which makes the eye see. What is the ear of the ear? That which makes the ear hear. What is the mind of the mind? That which makes the mind think and know. So that is what is called as that illumining principle. So citing from the Kenopanishad in Shankara Bhashya, Adi Shankaracharya says, Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Mano Yad Vacho Havacham Savu Pranasya Pranaha Chakshusas Chakshuhu Atimuchya Dhiraha Pretyasman lokad amruta bhavanti. Pretyasman lokad amruta bhavanti. Shrotrasya shrotram manaso mano yad vacho havacham savu pranasya pranaha chakshusas chakshuhu atimuchya dhiraha pretyasman lokad amruta bhavanti. Pretyasman lokad amruta bhavanti. In the Kenopanishad it is said, that which is the ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech, prana of the prana. Please understand, that which is the ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech, that is the prana of the prana and eye of the eye. Are kya baat hai? That is the prana of the prana and eye of the eye. So he says, Atimuchya dhiraha. See, the Dhira Purusha, the Dhira Purushas meaning who turn their attention from the external world and turn towards the inner self. Avrutta Chakshuhu Amrutatvam Icchan. In order to gain that Amrutatva, immortality, they turn their attention from the mortal sensory world to the immortal inner self. That is called as the Dhira Purusha. So these Dhira Purushas know Atma as beyond the time and know that Atma is of the nature of knowledge. So, when they know that Atman is beyond time, space and objectivity, beyond every limitation, and they know that the Atman is of the nature of knowledge, of the nature of consciousness, they get rid of superimposed anatma dharmas. They get rid of all the superimposed anatma dharmas in oneself. So, pretyasman lokad, they go beyond the bondage of samsara. They go beyond this bondage of samsara and amruta bhavanti. They get liberated and become immortal. How do they become immortal? Because they get liberated. How do they get liberated? Because they go beyond the bondage of samsara. How do they go beyond the bondage of samsara? They get rid of all the superimposed anatma dharmas in the atma. When they get rid of that, how do they get rid of that? Because of that dhiratva, they gain the knowledge. So what we have to do? We also have become Dhira Purushas, meaning turning the attention from the obsessions with the outer world to the inner world. So, the mind, eye and other organs can perceive only when they are illumined by the self. Mind appears conscious only because of the illumination from the self. Sense organs appear conscious and sentient only because of the illumination of the self. So, because they are illumined by the self, they cannot know the self. That is what is meant in the last line. Manaschakshura there, agamya swarupa. The self cannot be known by the mind and senses because it is the illumining principle. They function because of this illumining principle. When they get detached and disassociated from the illumining principle, they cannot function, so they cannot know. Swami Chidatmanandha used to give a very gross example. Torchlight has a battery. Because of that, that light is glowing. Because of that glowing light, it can perceive the objects, it can illumine the objects. If that light bulb wants to see the battery, when the battery is removed, light bulb cannot function. So the light bulb cannot know the battery. That's how we used to give a gross example. Similarly, the illumining principle, when it is disassociated from these illumined limiting adjuncts called as mind, intellect, memory, ego, senses, they cannot function. That is why it is said, agamya swarupaha. They cannot know the self. The mind, I cannot know the self. So that is why in the highest level, Kathopanishad says, Neha nanasti kinchana iti. There is no plurality in the Atman. Atman alone exists. All these indriyas and other things cannot be in the conscious Atman. And Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also says, the embodied Atman. So the Atman which looks embodied, which looks engulfed by the body, may appear limited by the body only because of avidya. But Atman in originality, even though he is embodied, the Atman is limitless, all-pervasive, unconditioned by the body, even when the Atman occupies the body. Even when the Atman occupies the body, it is unconditioned by the body. Even though infinite space occupies the pot, it is unconditioned by the pot. Similarly, the all-pervasive Atman, even though when it occupies the body, it is unconditioned by the body. That which is not illumined by anything other than itself, and that which is self-luminous, such a thing is Atman. So that cannot be illumined by anything. So any other sources of our worldly knowledge cannot illumine this Atman. So it becomes beyond known. It is unknown. And then Adi Shankaracharya ji in Shankara Bhashyam says, Buddhindriya sharirebhyo bhinna atma vibhur dhruvaha nana rupa pratikshetram atma vrittishu bhasate. He says, Buddhi indriya sharirebhya bhinna atma vibhu dhruvaha. See, Atma Vastu is different from Buddhi Indriya Sharira. Atman is different from Sharira, body, Indriya, sense organs, Buddhi, mind, intellect, memory, yoga, equipment. So Atma is different from intellect, Indriyas and body. It is Vibhuhu, meaning Sarvavyapakaha, meaning all-pervading. It is Dhruvaha, meaning Nishchalaha, meaning steady, meaning motionless. That firm, steady, motionless is Nishchala, that is Dhruva. All pervasive is Sarvavyapakaha, that is Vibhuhu. And Atman is Nityaha, that is eternal. So, such a Atma, Nana Rupa Pratikshetram, Atma Vrittisu Bhasate. So, that Atma shines in all bodies and all intellects in various forms. Same Atma shines in all bodies, all so every intellectual brilliance, every mental caliber and capacity, every sense organ's perfection, health, every body's sturdiness, all belong to Atma which illumines them. The ego, when it claims, I am intelligent, I am talented, I am this, I am healthy, I am that, it is all belonging to the Atma. So then, now the connection for the next sloka is, if the self cannot be known by mind, sense organs, then how it can be realized? That will be told in the next sloka, which we will take up later on. There was one politician who was called to give a speech. So he started to give speech and then looked at the crowd and then said, that was a joint political meeting like thing. So he looked at the crowd and said, my speech, only 10,000 people? I have to talk only to 10,000 people? Then the opposition leader there said, yes, it was announced that it is your speech. That is why only 10,000 came. Had it been announced that you are being hanged in public, 50,000 people will come. That is a different story. Each person's perception might be different. Kapoorji went to France. Kapoorji, when he went to France, he went to a restaurant and then he called the waiter and then said, Donnes moi une tia. Donnes moi une tia. Meaning what? Please give me 1 cup of tea. Get me 1 cup of tea. And the waiter there, surprisingly, to the shock and dismay of Kapoorji, replied in Hindi, हमको फ्रेंच नहीं आता. Waiter in Hindi there, that fellow replies, हमको फ्रेंच नहीं आता. I don't know French. And the Kapoorji says, go and call somebody who knows French. Go and call somebody who knows French. He says, why? Because I want to get a cup of tea. इसको बोल सकता ना? You can tell this fellow, no? Same language, but no. Thinking is like that. Error, mistake, when it is there in the mind. It wants only the French-speaking fellow to come to get the cup of tea. If the intention is to get the cup of tea, this fellow will do. But the dimag aisa kaam karta hai. Sometimes the peculiar mannerism in the mind will be like that. So, like that we also in the world land up in so many confusions and superimpose all the properties and qualities of body, sense organs, mind, intellect, ego onto oneself, and we suffer. So we need to get rid of all that superimposition. That itself is liberation. Vasudeva sarvamidam. Vasudeva sarvamidam. Sarvam Vishnumayam Jagat. Sarvam Vishnumayam Jagat. Brahmamatramidam sarvam. Brahmamatramidam sarvam. Sarvam Brahmaiva Sakalam Jagat. Sarvam Brahmaiva Sakalam Jagat. Bhutani Vishnurityadya. Shatakodha Sahasrasaha. Vishwasya Brahma Bhinnatve. Jayanti Shrutayopi Cha. Jayanti Shrutayopi Cha. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ